It's great to have you with me. We'll be getting started in just a few seconds. So good to have so many of you logged on early. Wonderful. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate that. And so here we go. This is an interactive webinar. The more you join in, the more you comment in the chat box, the more you're going to get out of me. That's just all there is to it. So let's do a little practice. I'd love it if you'd find that chat box and just say hello. It'd be fun if you could tell me where you're from or where you're joining us from. That would be great. Hi, Christina. Good to see you. You just drop that in there just to let me know that you can find the chat box, right? That's really what that's all about. Can you find the chat box and shoot me a message there? There we go. Christina's from Squamish, BC. Yay, Canada, right? The rest of you, feel free to grab that. Mary is from Pennsylvania and from Delta, BC. Oh, two BCers. Cool, cool. Okay, thanks for that. And anybody else who wants to weigh in, please do. We are going to today to, oh, we've got one from Medicine Hat. Huh. So you're just like 2.5 hours away from me because I'm in Alberta as well. Hi, Abby. Good to have you here. Very fun. So we're heavy on the Canadian side. Go us, right? And welcome to everybody. Welcome to everybody. So good to have you here. And we've got, I hope I'm saying your name right, Correlating in Costa Rica, but originally from South Africa. Nice, nice. Okay, excellent. Fantastic. Thank you. So this is an interactive webinar. I wanted you to find that chat box because I'm going to be asking you questions and I'm going to be expecting you to answer me. And I'm also going to be expecting you to ask me questions. Now, we don't have a lot of time together, so we're not going to be able to dive as deep as we do in the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System program, but I'm going to today teach you a little bit about the most common iris marker that teaches us about the nervous system. Okay, so this is really important stuff. I don't know about you, but I am seeing so many nervous system types of symptoms coming through my clinic that this is a really important marker for us to know. Okay, we are going to go a little bit deep today, not super deep, but a little bit. So it's important that you know how I got to where I am with iridology, because in my practice, I also use nutrition and herbology and they all work together. It's really important that you have a modality when you are doing iridology so you can do the assessment with the eyes, but then you have to have tools to be able to make appropriate recommendations, and those are our modalities, right? Is this making sense so far? This is making sense. Give me a makes sense in the chat box. Makes sense? Great, Christina, super. So I started studying iridology in 1979. I was a very young adult back then. I had health problems that were not life-threatening. And because of that, the doctors didn't seem very interested in helping me to deal with the symptoms I was having. So that's when I went to the dark side. No, that's when I went to the natural side. Okay, and that is when I started learning about iridology and nutrition and herbology and all of these good things, right? Because truly, this is about health. This isn't about disease identification or disease diagnosis. It's about restoring health. And so as I learned these things in those early years, I started teaching classes and courses because there weren't a lot available. And if you had this knowledge, it was precious and it was rare. So I started teaching. I started my own health coaching business, which I still have now. But you know, I got disenchanted with the iridology I'd learned. I'd started with Jensen's iridology. And, you know, a few years in, I wasn't seeing the changes that I was told I would see in those eyes. But my clients were getting results. They were feeling better. They were having their health restored. So I'm going, I don't get it. I was told the eyes would change, but they're not. And my client is feeling better. How does this work? And no one could answer me. No one had answers. So I was just about ready to walk away from iridology because, yeah, I probably didn't really need it to do what I needed to do. So that was when I learned constitutional iridology. I was blessed with that opportunity to go a slightly different direction with iridology. And I started studying that in the late 1980s. And by 1993, I had certified a couple times over as a constitutional iridologist. This style of iridology really works. It helps me to understand my clients more quickly and to get to the root of their problems. That helps me create better programs for them from the get-go. And that leads to better client results and better client retention, which is amazing, right? When we have a business, we want our clients to be repeat customers. I just had another one just recently come in. I haven't seen her in about 15 years. 15 years older, perimenopausal, having new problems that she didn't have 15 years ago. And so she's coming back, and this is so good. All right, so I like that Hala is saying that she does iridology as well. This is great. So with this, just wanted to share some of my recent accolades with you. In 2022, the International Iridology Practitioners Association gave me the Instructor of the Year award. I'm not sure exactly what I did besides doing what I love, which is teaching with heart and soul and just putting it all out there. And in 2024, they gave me the Iridologist of the Year award. Again, I'm not sure what I did to earn that, except that I work really hard at trying to spread information about iridology. Mary, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying I deserve it, because I do work hard for this. I work hard for my students, right? Here's my badges. Every 2 years we have to recertify. We have to provide proof that we have done upgrading and that we're current. And these are the most recent badges. Now, over these years, because we're talking since 1979, you can do the math. That's higher math in my opinion. But in those years, I have developed and taught many courses on basic herbology, practical use of herbs, prenatal care, what else? Kids. I've designed courses on using herbs with children. I've designed courses on biokinesiology and color therapy. I've designed courses. I was a prenatal educator for a while, so I had designed a course for that as well. I was a certified prenatal educator. And I've written books to go with most of these things. Most of the books are out of print now. They were self-published, self-distributed. They never made it to like a big publishing house. But I've also written and produced for my students only the textbook, 225-page textbook called the Dynamic Iridology Textbook. So I'm really just excited and happy to be teaching what I love and practicing what I love in my clinic. Stay with me to the end of today, because I'm going to introduce you to the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System program that's actually starting again next week. So if you're interested in that, that's cool. I am only one of, I should do the, I should do the count now. Last time I checked, there were only 4 certified level 3 instructors in all the world. There might be more than that now. Okay, but there's not very many, and many of them who are certified are not teaching, but they've got the certification. Christina says, would love to be able to read your books. Yeah, you know, Christina, in my spare time, wink, wink, I am editing those books, which means it's going to be a lot of years till they're ready for republishing, right? But you will get, Christina's enrolled in the upcoming course. Christina, I hope it's okay that I said that. So you're going to get a lot of the information just shared in Dynamic Iridology that is in those books, right? So you're going to get a lot of it. I am also a trained nutrition professional, holistic nutrition, affiliated with both Can Pro and Can P. And I'm also a master herbalist and associated with the Alberta Herbalist Association. This is what one of my graduates said. We're going to look at so many cases and so many eyes tonight that you're probably going to go cross-eyed looking at eyes. So just bear with me as I do a little bit of this, because the purpose of these mini classes is to introduce you to constitutional iridology, right? It's to share with you some iridology that you can use with your very next client. How many of you have a practice of some sort where you're coaching people for their health? Just give me a coach in the chat box. And Christina, thank you for saying it's okay for me to share a bit about you. Abby and Mary, excellent, excellent. So, and Correlating and Shayna, fantastic. What I'm going to teach you tonight is something that you can use with your very next client. Okay, if you've got even something like a lighted magnifying glass, you will be able to see the markers we are talking about today. All right, so you want to take some notes here. We're going to look at a lot of eyes and some cases and talk about them and what their background was and what their symptoms were and the recommendations I made. Start giving you a bit of that clinical background, not just here's the marker, but the clinical background, right? So important. Kimberly Zadalis was as a student who is now a certified iridologist with IPA. She did my course. If you're wondering which iridology course to take, you can stop looking. You've found it. Judith Cobb is an excellent instructor with many years of experience. She's a caring and compassionate person who is dedicated to her field of iridology and her students. I personally practice both Eastern and Western physiology medicine and was very impressed with the layout of her program. She makes it easy for her students to balance work, life, and study. And so that's really cool. I really appreciated those kind words. So just laying that foundation here, that if an iridology course, whether it's an update or whether you're starting from ground zero, is in your future, I posted a link in the chat there where you can get some more information about the course, and you can schedule a meet and greet with me for us to get to know each other, to ascertain whether this is a good fit for you at this point in time. All right. So again, if you're a health practitioner and you're thinking that you want to dive into iridology or maybe upgrade your skills or refresh your skills, use that link and let's meet and let's talk about it. All right. You ready to look at some eyes? If you are, give me a big fat yes in the chat box. Yes. Christina says yes. Love that enthusiasm. And Abby, fantastic. Yes, yes. And Correlating, right on. Brilliant. Oh, yeah, yeah. You're in. Great. So with constitutional iridology, we are going to call these contraction furrows. What are some other names for those of you who've got some iridology under your belt already? What are some other names you have called these wrinkles or creases that are in the iris? Stress rings. Yeah, they've been called stress rings by many, many teachers. Anybody else had nerve rings? Anything else? Okay. We'll work with what we've got here then. We're going to call these contraction furrows because they are made by the iris tissue being compressed or contracted and then expanded and contracted and expanded and contracted and expanded. Now, in the dynamic iridology assessment system course, we will learn the difference between 7 different kinds of contraction furrows, but today we're doing that high level overview, that general review of what they are. So this is really important. We need to begin by looking at the anatomy of the iris. So when we look at an iris, in this case, the anatomy we're going to look at is going to be a cross section. So it's like we've cut the iris and then we're going to look at that cut edge. Okay, we want to see the layers of the iris here and we want to see what it looks like. So that cut edge, when we're looking at it end on, the pupil is here. So let's come back here for a moment. So we've got the pupil and the cut edge. We've got the pupil over here and the cut edge. This is the side of the iris that we see visibly. This is the side that holds the pigment. This is the back side of the iris that is facing into the posterior chamber of the eye. Is everybody clear about what we're looking at? Got to tell you, in all honesty, it took me 30 years of looking at diagrams like this to figure out what they were about because no one ever explained them to me. So are you good with this? Is this making sense? That this is a cut edge, the pupils here, front of the eye, front of the iris, back of the iris. We're good? Fantastic. This is so good. You guys are fast. You're good. This is wonderful. Yes, yes. Okay, so as we look at that, no, you know what I need to do? I need to pop back one. When we're looking at a contraction furrow, it is truly a wrinkle in the surface of the eye. As the pupil dilates or gets bigger, it pushes the iris and makes the tissues contract. So the outer edge of the iris, this edge stays stationary, but this edge pushes outward. And as it pushes outward, it makes this tissue wrinkle. And that's exactly what we've got here. So if the surface, the outer surface is wrinkled, there will be a parallel wrinkle on the back side of the iris. Does that make sense? It's like having a stack of fabric and you're pushing the ends together. The fabric is all going to ripple the same way. Make sense? Give me ripple in the chat box if that made sense to you. Right on. Fantastic. This is so good. So good. Yes, yes, yes. Nicely done. Okay, so the next 3 photos are of the same person. And I want you to notice here we've got the pupil is very large. Look at how compressed this is. This is very poorly lit. You can see hints of contraction furrows here. Part of the reason we can't see them clearly is because the light is dim and the light is all coming from the front. That's going to fill in the dips and valleys, but we've got a few little bits of contraction furrows that we can see, especially over here. Now, when we change our lighting and make it brighter, that makes the pupil contract. Notice how it stretches the iris tissue out. But again, we've got the frontal lighting, so we don't see the wrinkles. That light is literally filling in those dips and valleys. Now, this is important. I had a student a few years back who was a naturopath in another country. She had studied iridology as a part of her naturopathy training. And when we talked about contraction furrows, she said, oh, none of my clients have contraction furrows. And I said, you've got a camera, don't you? You've got an iridology camera. She said, yeah. And I said, do you ever turn one of the lights off? Oh, no, no. Why would I do that? Because changing the lighting changes what you see. I got an email from her the next day and she said, oh my goodness, I've seen 4 clients in the past day and I started turning off one light and I started seeing contraction furrows. All of my clients have contraction furrows, right? So you see, same eye, turn off one light. Now we're casting shadows. That lets us see the contraction furrows. This is something to be very aware of because there are people who will put up a photo like this and follow with a photo like this and say, look, we've healed the contraction furrows. No, you haven't. You've changed your camera. You've changed your lighting. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me a thumbs up or give me a make sense in the chat box. So when we are looking at this, we're making sense. So good, so good. Side lighting is so important. We need to play with our lights, people. We really do. So what this is showing us is that inherently, genetically, prenatally, she was exposed to stress in utero. Her genetic predisposition, because you will remember, let's pop back a few photos, you will remember that if this was done in the same lighting as the other photos, if we saw her pupil was this large, she would be functioning in a particular aspect of her nervous system. What aspect of the nervous system would she be functioning in? Sympathetic or parasympathetic? Large pupils means she is in the which nervous system? Sympathetic, Christina, there's that A and P shining for you. Absolutely, sympathetic, fight or flight. Pupils are dilated, so she doesn't have to turn her head very far to see the bear chasing her, right? That would be sympathetic. When the pupils are smaller, we are in the parasympathetic mode, which is rest, digest, sex, right? It's chill, we're good, we're safe, there's no problems. But we still see with the right lighting that she's had a lot of experience compressing and relaxing this iris tissue, which again started prenatally as a response to the stress hormones her mother had. Okay. This also teaches us that her genetic predisposition is to be a very active responder when it comes to stress. Now, this is actually one of my daughters. Does that, okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. It's my oldest daughter, actually. Sweetheart. She works for me now a little bit, which is great. I really love having her around. When we were doing all these photos, she was much younger. She was late teen, and she was not good at taking supplements. She was not good at eating healthy foods. You know, we would put healthy food on the table. She would eat that, but if she was on her own or if she was out, junk food and junk food wrappers under her bed. Oh dear, should I admit that? Oh my goodness. Right. So she was not nourishing herself well. I always knew that when she came home from school, I shouldn't even talk to her except to say, go take your B vitamins and go get a snack and go to your room. Come back in 20 minutes. As long as she went and took her B vitamins and had a protein snack, not a junk food snack, and went and just had some chill time for 20 minutes, she'd come back to me and she'd be perfectly human. If she didn't do those things, there would be fangs and claws, right? And it would not be pretty for anybody. So we knew that her nervous system, she burned it out. She's a type A personality, right? So she needed the nutrients. She really did. So we really have worked with her. She's now in her early 30s and a mother of 2. And we've really worked together to help her understand how important her nutrition is, especially because she's feeding 2 children now, right? Right. So we really work with this. But we need to remember that this doesn't say she's under stress now. It tells us how she is more likely to internalize the stress, or that she is more likely to internalize the stress, that she's more likely to respond very strongly in a stressful situation. Right? And she may not have an overt reaction, but inside she will just be eaten alive by the stress when she's not well nourished, when she's not getting enough sleep, when she's not getting her downtime. So really important. So when we see this, it again increases the person's risk of overreacting to the normal events of life if they are not well nourished and taking good self-care. Does this make sense? Are we good with this? Any questions so far? Fantastic. So she's learning good coping strategies, which is brilliant. So this is a 4-year-old girl. Actually, she was 2 when she was 22 months when we got this photo, 22 months. And look at those contraction furrows. Right? She was born with these. She didn't do anything to put them there. These are inherent. They are not earned. Right? She's got some yellow in her iris as well, but we're not focusing on pigment today. We are simply focusing on contraction furrows. Even the pigment is inherent. She hasn't done anything to put this here. This is her genetic constitution. Let's take a minute and look at her parents. This is her dad. Look at all of his contraction furrows. This is her mom. Look at all of her contraction furrows. Is it any wonder this child has contraction furrows? Now, both of these parents, they're not working in the industry of life coach now, but they both certified as life coaches, which was probably the smartest thing they have ever done, because they are raising this single daughter. She is 10 years old. They're raising her in a really calm environment. And when there is a problem, there's no yelling, there's no name calling, there's no aggression. It's always, let's talk about it. Now that was, and they'll say if she's being as an adolescent being cranky, they'll say, now, was that an appropriate thing to do? What would be a better thing to do? Who do you maybe need to apologize to because you probably hurt their feelings? Right? And they just talk it through and they help her think through the process so that she is learning really great skills as well. Right? So that's really cool to see how contraction throws are generational. Remember that what we see in the eyes is passed down from 3 to 4 generations. Right? What we see in the sclera, some of it will be genetic, and some of it will be what the person has done to activate problems. Okay. This is a little 2-year-old as well. Now, I took care of her grandma, and then and her grandma's still alive, and I took care of grandma when she was having daughters, and then one of those daughters is now the mother of this little girl. And so mom brought this little girl into me as a 2-year-old saying, I don't know what's happened. She used to be so easy to work with. We could talk to her. We could logic things out. We could reason with her. She was really, really easy to work with. But recently, meltdowns. If she loses her favorite toy, she will scream literally for 8 hours without stopping. We can't distract her. We can't bribe her. We can't reason with her. She can't even hear us because she's screaming so loud. And she said, there's something not right. And I went, yeah, that is not normal. Not normal. And she'll be awake all night screaming if she's upset about something, screaming and crying. And I will assure you, there is no autism and there are no neurological deficits that are diagnosable here. So what do we know about contraction throws? We know several things about them nutritionally. They tell us that this person internalizes stress, which means it increases their demand for B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium. Those are the nutrients that feed the nervous system, right? And so as I talked with this mom and this little girl, mom is very nutrition conscious, right? All food is cooked from scratch. Mom actually wrote a best-selling recipe book that is traditional recipes from her family's bloodline. Mom also buys everything organic. Like there's nothing fake in this house. It's really good quality food. But as we were talking about it, this little girl loved fruit and would have 6, 7, 8 servings of fruit per day. And mom thought because it was natural and it was organic, that it was fine, that it was nutritious. But what mom hadn't thought through was how having all of that fruit sugar, and yes, vitamins and minerals, was crowding out proteins and good fats in the diet, right? So what we had to do is cut her back. 1 serving of fruit per day, good proteins, good fats, and a little bit of really high quality unrefined carbohydrates, right? So whole grain things, which mom was perfectly able to create and no problems getting this into this little girl. And so by pulling back on the fruit, by increasing protein and good fats and complex carbs, and by adding a liquid B complex to this little girl's diet, within about 3 days, this little girl settled. She was not getting enough of the B vitamins, especially in her diet, and her blood sugars were unbalanced enough that it was creating meltdowns. Looking at her eyes and knowing that she needed more B, C, calcium, and magnesium, and knowing we could do the majority of that through her food just simply by changing food choices made the world of difference. The world of difference. Does that make sense? This is where it's really good to have the modality of understanding nutrition and or supplements and or herbs, right? We need that kind of background behind us when we're doing iridology. It does no good to tell someone you've got contraction throws, that means you internalize stress, and you need B, C, calcium, and magnesium, most people wouldn't know what to do with that information, right? Our job is to teach them what to do with it and to help them craft these changes into their daily lifestyle, right? Which means we are also going to cherry pick the recommendations we make. Because if we make a list of recommendations this long, client then begins to go, well, I like this one and this one because they're easy. I can't do the rest of these. That's overwhelming. And so they don't get the results you know they would get if you could coach them and teach them how to do step 1 and 2, recommendation 1 and 2, instead of recommendation 7 and 12, right? So it's up to us to sort and choose the information that will work best for our client, and to work as a coach, not as a dictator. We need to remember that the eyes don't actually show us the deficiencies. They show us the predisposition to deficiencies. No matter what we do with this little girl's diet, these contraction furrows are never going to disappear. Our ultimate goal is that we teach her how to nourish herself well, and we teach her good coping skills so that when she gets to where she's having children, she's already well fortified and she can go into a pregnancy and potentially give her children better than what she's got, right? That's the ultimate goal. Here's what another one of my graduates, my certified graduates, said, and you can look these up on the International Iridology Practitioners Association website. Karen Choate is a certified natural health professional practitioner, and her specialty is gut health. Judith Cobb has been one of the teachers who has made a difference in my life. She's a born teacher, meaning she has incredible knowledge to share in her field of expertise, patience with her students, whether you are completely new to the field or a person who has taken iridology courses with other teachers, and most importantly, the passion to ensure all of her students are well-versed and comfortable with what they've learned and are poised for success. Judith has always been generous with her time and is always willing to discuss any questions that I occasionally have had with unusual cases in my practice. We do that through extra mentoring sessions that we call office hours. I began implementing what I had learned in her course into my practice before I had even finished her classes. That is my goal for my students, is that they will not wait until they finish the classes to begin using what they learn. And it has been an invaluable tool in my office. I cannot say enough about Judith and any course that she teaches. And if you are considering studying iridology, look no further. Thank you, Karen. We're still in touch with Karen. She graduated like 5 years ago, and she is still a certified iridologist, which is very cool. Now, when we look at contraction furrows, again, they give us information about the predispositions of this person's nervous system and their nervous system functioning. So we know that when we see contraction furrows, this is a person who is at greater risk, particularly when they're not properly nourished and supported, for ADD, ADHD, depression, anxiety, right? So we know that when we see these, we need to be listening to what are the symptoms this client is talking about. What symptoms do they want my help with? I see contraction furrows. How do these overlap? How do they connect? And Mary says OCD. Absolutely. OCD as well. Absolutely. So how do the symptoms and what I'm seeing in the eyes connect? Where do they overlap? And what questions does that overlap teach me I need to ask this client to get the best information from them so I can make the best recommendations for them? It's not about looking at the eyes and identifying markers and telling clients, this is what I see and these are the problems you could have. How overwhelming would it be to see an eye like this and to say, well, you know, you've got an increased risk of OCD, ADHD, ADD, depression, and anxiety. Who needs to hear it like that? Right? That's not helpful information. But to correlate it and say, for example, with this little boy, he was 10 years old and he came in when his parents brought him in to see me. because he was being assessed for ADHD, right? So I look at his eyes and I go, oh, well, I totally understand why he's being assessed for that from what his eyes say. Let's talk about diet. Let's talk about supplements. Let's talk about what would help him with this. Okay, so when this little boy came in, again, being assessed for ADHD, we talked about diet. Breakfast was an Eggo waffle with pancake syrup and margarine on it. So white flour, bad fats, pure sugar. He takes his lunch to school because we don't have lunch programs in our schools here. Lunch was typically processed ham, processed cheese on a white bun with something like little gummy bear kinds of candies to go in there, and a juice box. Like, who are we kidding that it's got juice in it, right? Because they're not juice boxes. They're flavored sugar, water, artificially colored liquid, right? And so the supper, 2 children in the family, very busy family life in the evenings, kids in all kinds of extracurriculars. So supper was either pasta because it's fast, or drive-through because we don't have time to make anything, right? How devoid of nutrients is that diet? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? That there's almost no nutrition there. There's calories, but no nutrition. Do you agree with me that that diet is lacking just a little bit? Right, so we started making some switches, and some of them were pretty easy, right? So it was for breakfast. Could you batch prep a bunch of whole grain pancakes or waffles and just freeze them so they could be popped in the toaster in the morning, right? Could you switch to real butter? Could you switch to real maple syrup or honey? And could you put a couple of eggs with that? And mom was, yeah, that's easy. Great. Let's talk about lunch. Could we use a multigrain bread or bun? Sure, we could. Great. Could we, I'm not going to rag on the ham just yet, but could we use real cheese instead of a cheese slice? Yeah, we could. Great. Could we put real fruit in the lunch instead of gummy candy things? Yeah, we could do that. Fantastic. Could you get a really snazzy, that's probably an outdated word, the really snazzy water bottle and just send him with purified water? Yeah, we could do that. Great. There's lunch. We need an after school snack. Needs to be a protein base. What could that look like? And we talked through different ideas of what an after school snack would look like. And then supper. Mom works full time. Dad works full time. No one's got time to cook. Do you own a slow cooker? Yeah, we do. When was the last time you took it out of the cupboard? I don't remember. All righty. There's some great recipe books for slow cooker. Instant pot is the trend now, right? Could you instant pot something? A soup, a stew, something layered, right? And that was what we did. Abby, I didn't even have to go to an elimination protocol. We simply worked at bringing nutritious foods in, because the problem wasn't that he had allergic symptoms or that there were foods that were irritating him. It was that he was not getting any nutrient. We just simply brought nutritious foods in, gave him an omega-3 supplement. There might have been 1 or 2 other supplements, I don't remember right now, but absolutely omega-3s, and encourage them to get some leafy greens. Buy packaged salads if you need to. Let's get some leafy greens alongside that supper meal, right? And here was what was interesting. Mom broke her ankle and she was laid up for 6 weeks. Like, she could not wait there on that ankle for 6 weeks. So she spent a lot of time in the lazy boy recliner and in bed with her foot raised, right? So one evening, we'd been working together for 3 or 4 months, and mom was laid up with her ankle on the pillow. And mom called to this boy and said, hey, do you want to play old maid? And he went, sure, mom. So he came in to play. They finished game number 1. And then he said, "You want to go again, Mom?" So they played game number 2. And then he said, "You want to go again, Mom?" And they got halfway through game number 3. Mom sent me an email the next morning and said, "We've never made it through one game before. What we are doing is working well." It was like, yes, we win. We are winning. Christina says, "How do you navigate with food intolerances?" Well, we work with that individually, right? So if someone is intolerant to dairy, we certainly are not going to say use dairy. If they're intolerant to wheat, we don't do that. What I do is we work with bringing in as many nutritious foods as we can, and I have them do a deep gut biome test for us to see what the biome is doing, because in many cases, a food intolerance is actually an unbalanced gut biome. And when we know how their gut biome is unbalanced, we can start using foods to reshape that gut biome, and often the food intolerances will disappear. Okay. Yeah. So it's long-term work. It's not one appointment, right? It's multiple appointments. We're not reshooting the photos every time, because the iris is going to accumulate markings. It's not going to dissipate markings. And so we might shoot photos twice a year, once a year, and we're mostly looking for, are there any new pigments that have come up? Are there any changes in the sclera? Because the sclera, we can see things surface, and with dedicated work, we may see some things disappear there, right? So as we do this, we're also looking at, with this little fellow, we did some liver support. That might have been through leafy greens. But we did a bit of liver support. I'm just looking at my notes here. And we needed to do that because, remember, the liver makes cholesterol, and that's used to make neurotransmitters. And then the liver has to break those down when they've done their job. So if the liver's not functioning in a situation like this, if it's not up to snuff, we need to get it up to snuff. We need to nourish it and bring it back online. Bernard Jensen used to say 3 contraction furrows, 3 complete concentric contraction furrows meant you were headed into a nervous breakdown. We know that's not true. We know that's not true. This has nothing to do with nervous breakdown, but it does have a lot to do with sensitivity to stress. Michelle says, challenging with those who are oversensory with foods as well. Yeah. So you just work with each client individually, and there is no one set protocol, not even for the supplements I recommend. They may need B vitamins. I've got several choices of B vitamins. There are several food choices we can use to enhance B vitamins, right? And so each person is individual, and those are the kinds of things we talk a lot about in the dynamic iridology assessment system. We do pull in information about nutrition and about supplements and about herbs as well, right? Phyllis Barron is a medical doctor trained in Turkey. She is now living in the US. This is what she just recently said, because she is one of my most recent certified grads. Very cool. Eyes have always been in my attention, but I never thought eyes tell us more about genes, characters, and eating habits, our hormones, and potential diseases. My one of best decision in my life, this is her Turkish language syntax, is to learn iridology from Judith Cobb. She is an expert on healing, the way she explains and teaches how human body works and how hormones affect us. And reading iris and sclera are amazing. Her classes have so much information and never boring. I would recommend from all my heart to everybody to learn iridology from her. Thank you so much, dear Judith. Sweet Phyllis, sweet Phyllis. She was absolutely amazing with how quickly she completed the course. It's a 20-week course, so she finished that the way it's outlined, because it's live interactive classes. And then she certified. She took less than 4 months to complete her certification requirements. She just really buckled down and did a great job, as do almost all my students. Do a great job. Here's another one of my daughters. She has had challenges with anxiety, with postpartum depression. She has been medicated for postpartum depression. And she's got a child who is special needs. He's on the autism spectrum and speech delayed. And she's got another child who has no known issues. Both of her children were breastfed, the oldest for 2 years and the younger one for 2.5 years. She really wanted a way to get off the pharmaceuticals, to get off the antidepressant, anti-anxiety meds she was on. And so she opted to stop taking those medications. What we learned was that she does really well on a good prenatal vitamin, which she just stays on whether she's pregnant, breastfeeding, or not. And we've also learned that there are some herbal combinations that are designed specifically to support the nervous system and to help with keeping one calm. And she does so well with those that she just, whenever she visits, and she just lives like 15 minutes away. So it's not like I don't see her frequently. She'll pop in, she'll say, yeah, Mom, I'm out of prenatal vitamins, or I'm out of my herbs. Can I get some more from you? Right. And of course, you can get more from me, sweetie, because everybody loves you so much. And we love being around you more when you are not irritable and thin-skinned and struggling, right? We love to support you, but it's easier to be with you when you're feeling great. So we just try to support her always, always. Her eyes, again, she's got lots of contraction furrows, lots of them. She is a type A personality as well, super high achiever. When she went to university, she thought she could study, Russian, and she was actually enrolled in 2 classes, Spanish and Russian, or something crazy like that. She discovered very soon that 2 languages at one time, when you don't have the opportunity to speak either, is probably not a good idea. So she struggled with that. But that was her overachieving way of, oh, I can do this, I can do that, I can do all these things, right? She's learning to calm it down and to just, no, I can handle this. That will have to wait. And that's a really good lesson for her to learn as well. Her stress levels are still very high, and her diet is still not quite what we want it to be. She has married a fellow who really likes his junk food. And so it's really hard to keep her on track. So we keep her with the supplements until she's able to get a better grip on her diet. It's coming slowly. It's coming slowly. These are the eyes of a 24-year-old male. Look at those contraction furrows. We're not even going to talk about everything we see in the sclera. Oh my goodness, there's so much going on in his sclera. But we look at those contraction furrows. Really a high diet, a high carbohydrate diet, like 2 liters of soda pop a day, pretty much whether he needs to or not, right? Lots of white rice. He's Asian, so lots of white rice, lots of sugary sauces. He is not physically active. He is a little bit overweight. He also not only has depression and anxiety, but he has gout. He's very young to have gout, right? And so again, his eyes don't tell us that he's under stress, but he handles certain kinds of stress really well and other kinds not well at all. He is an insurance, he used to be an insurance agent, but he's worked his way up the ranks to be where he's middle management now. And he absolutely loves it, loves it. There's nothing that could happen in that job that would make him feel out of his depth. He loves that work. Family things that are troublesome, extended family things that are troublesome, things like that, that really does get under his skin and can knock him off his feet. One incident can knock him off his feet for 3 or 4 weeks, right? And so he really does internalize certain kinds of stress. When we are looking at contraction furrows in general, we look to where the end points of them are, and that will tell us which organs tend to carry the brunt physically of the stress. So we've got the emotional impact, but then there will be a physical impact. And then again, we talked earlier, there's 7 different kinds of contraction furrows that we can map out. And they each bring with them different characteristics and traits for how the stress will impact the body. So this fellow, again, he's actually one of my sons-in-law, and he's not going to take supplements. He's not there yet. So we just have to love him, right? Just love him and just encourage him. And when we see he's doing good things, we just reward him, that's a really great choice, or hey, I haven't seen you eat that many vegetables in a long time, that's so good, right? Rita says, I studied Jensen's iridology and he said that these are stress rings. What are your opinion on this? Okay, so we covered that at the very beginning. Stress ring is another name for these. In constitutional iridology, we call them contraction throws. Jensen said these are the result of stress. We know they are not. So I'm going to invite you to go back and watch the replay to catch the beginning of the explanation of this, because these are not the result of being under stress. These are something we inherit and they become obvious prenatally, right? So we covered all of that. You'll be able to catch it all. You can even watch it on 1.5 speed if you want to do it faster when you've got the replay, right? I love replays for that reason, right? And so, but they do teach us that this person internalizes his stress. And that increases the demand for nerve nutrients, for nutrients that feed the nervous system. So if I could get this young man to do specific things for his nervous system, I would have him get rid of the fizzy beverages, right? I would encourage him. He is working on eating more vegetables because he's my son-in-law. And I would encourage him to continue to work on vegetables and good proteins. I'm not going to touch the white rice. That's his culture. And he's not going to change that. That's just not going to change. And I know it. But I can get him to build in other nutritious things around that, and we'll make significant progress. I would also encourage him to use a high quality, probably B vitamin at the very least. And I would probably want to introduce a herbal supplement that was nutrient dense as far as vitamins and minerals. So something that maybe had nettles and alfalfa and dandelion and kelp, things like that in it, to pad up some of the other vitamins and minerals, because I don't think he's going to want to take a pressed tablet as a vitamin supplement, right? If I can get him to do some capsules of our herbal blend, then that would be a really good option, right? All right, so, and those kinds of things will help him to manage his stress better when there's a family thing going on. It'll give him some resiliency. Right? But what do we often do when we're under stress? We resort to comfort foods, whatever the favorite comfort food is for that person, right? If that person is going to go for baked goods, they're going to start chowing down on baked goods, like on donuts or pie or cake. There's not a lot of people that their comfort food is a salad or is a vegetable stew or is even a really nice vegetable curry, right? There's not a lot of people who go that way. And so we would just need to be encouraging him to, when he's under stress, if he's going to have some junk food, can he balance that, a serving of junk food, with a serving of something that's healthy, right? Could we get him, okay, you're going to hear this from me and you're going to go, oh my stars. Could he even do a McDonald's chicken wrap? A little bit of vegetables, some protein. Is it perfect? No. Is it better than potato chips and candy? Somewhat, yes. Right? So we can gradually migrate him into better choices, but it's going to take time. Does that make sense? Sheena says, do you tend to take into account the caloric quality and absorption ability when working on nutrition and supplementation with those with the contraction first? Yes, I do, but we're really focused on contraction, introducing contraction throws here. So when I'm looking at the eyes, I'm doing that assessment, that is, what are all the markings that give me information about my client's primary concern? And that might include nutrizone, it might include collarette, it might include interpupillary border. There might be other pigments, there might be other fiber structures in here that we need to be paying attention to. But today our focus was contraction furrows, right? If so, what do you suggest on top of C? You know what? What I would suggest for the absorption is going to depend on the individual, right? And that, if we're talking absorption, that again is going to go back to gut biome, right? So I'm going to pick and choose based on where the issues are. Make sense? I don't have set protocols for anything. Everything is completely individualized. And that's what I teach in my course, is how to think through what are the questions you need to ask to help you come up with the best recommendations for this person. We spend a lot of time working on questions, right? Michelle says, sometimes we have to pick and choose our battles. Don't we though? And that's where I like to choose the one or two biggest impacting things. It might not be the hardest thing for them to do, but it would have the biggest impact, because I want them to start feeling the results of what they're doing within 2 to 3 weeks. If I can get them to see the benefit of making this change, then I can keep them engaged to make more changes. So pick and choose the battle. Absolutely. So if you want to dive more deeply into all things contraction frozen, all things iridology, and pull in some of your nutrition background and your herbal background and even your emotional training background, because we do touch a little bit on that as well, then we need to talk about the dynamic iridology assessment system. In this program, it is the only live, online, fully mentored course for anyone who's got a college level anatomy and physiology course already under their belt. That course needs to be a minimum of 60 instructional hours, and you need a grade of at least 80%. I know that's a lot to remember. But if you don't know anatomy and physiology, how are you going to be able to connect markings, liver to pancreas to intestines to whatever? How are you going to do that if you don't know how they work, right? And the A&P is a requirement for certification with IPA as well. So the purpose is to teach not just markings, but to teach you how to create protocols, how to integrate the markings, how to ask the right questions based on symptoms and what you see in the eyes, so that you can actually create your assessment and your client program in your paid client sessions. Too many holistic practitioners spend their own time writing up assessment reports, creating protocols to deliver information back. I want you to get it done when you're with your clients. You're getting paid for all the time you are working for that client. And when you do that, it will increase your client compliance and their success and your long-term retention. I mentioned that one family where I'm now working with a third generation. That is client retention. I've got clients that have been with me since day one through my early Jensen days. They stuck with me through that. So I've got clients that have been with me for 4.5 decades. Had this other client come in just last week who I hadn't seen in 15 years, right? This is long-term retention, and that's what we want in business, right? So important. This course includes 50 hours of live instruction, live interactive instruction in a small group setting. And again, it's starting on September 3rd. And there's the link again, if you are interested in going to the website, finding out more details. There's an invitation on that website, and I just put that back in the chat box, invitation on that website to have a one-on-one with me if you've got the A&P already and you're seriously looking at an iridology course. Christina said, I had a question earlier about the GI microbiome test kits. Do you give those to your clients? I actually use the Bitract tests, and we order them individually for each client. They've got 2 levels of testing. So we order the one that we want. It gets delivered to the client. Client does the test, sends it in, and I register the kit for them so that those results come back to me. Right. So there is a company called GI something, and that's not the one I use. Do you have a link for those? I can give you the link for those in the scope of the class, right? In the scope of the dynamic iridology course. Absolutely. Absolutely. So the purpose of meeting with me is, again, to ascertain, are you ready for this course? Will this course meet your needs, right? It's not for me to hard pressure sell you into anything. Joyce Lee, clinical aromatherapist, said, I took an iridology course from another school a few years ago, but I was left feeling inadequately trained and with no confidence in the material or my abilities to perform accurate assessments. Judith Cobb, on the other hand, is a wonderful instructor. She presents the material in this course in a concise, organized way. She clearly answers every question asked, no matter how trivial the student may think it is. Judith structures the classes in a way that makes them incredibly interesting. Clarification is clearly established through her instruction, discussion, and student participation. Upon completion of Judith's course, I feel very confident in my abilities and excited to offer iridology services to my client. This is an incredible value, highly recommend. Do I see clients virtually? Hala, that is a challenge because they have a darn hard time getting iris and sclera photos that are actually usable. If they can get good photos, it takes for iris photos alone, it takes typically about 100 shots with their smartphone to get the ones that are useful. If they can get them where they're clear enough and lit properly, then I can work virtually. The other thing is if I can see them even once a year in my office to get eye photos, then we can work virtually after that forever. Or I shouldn't say forever, but for a good year anyways, right? Because I'm not going to be reshooting photos every appointment. So I'm in Canada. I am Hala. Where are you located, Hala? In LA. Fantastic. Come and see us. Come and see us in the dead of winter and experience what a real winter is like. Not a California winter. Okay, I'm teasing you with that because that would be brutal. That would be brutal. You would probably die getting off the plane. Seriously, right? Andrea, where are you located? You're in BC, right? Are you? Did I get that right from before? And even Christina, your winters aren't as cold as they are here in Calgary. So yeah, pretty funny, right? Pretty funny. So there we go. There is only room for 10 students in each course. Andrea's in Toronto. Well, you get them pretty cold there. Only 10 students allowed in each course. There are some spots left for the course that starts on September 3rd. So if you are thinking, yes, this is probably the right time, I'm inviting you to take a look at that website, that link that I shared in the chat, and see what you think of the website. And if you're thinking, yeah, that sounds good, then you want to hop on over and book a session with me. I am familiar with David Pesic. He teaches a bit of a hybrid program. It's not completely, or he passed away recently, as you probably know. His courses are a bit of a hybrid. They're not purely constitutional, and I'm pretty much purely constitutional. Correlating, I'm glad you joined us today. How much is the course? We only talk about tuition once we know if the course is a good fit for you. Right? We need to make sure you've got the A&P. We need to make sure that this is going to take you where you want it to go. And that's when we talk about tuition. I don't like to just blast it out there because it's not the most important feature of a course, right? The learning materials, the support you get, the encouragement, the community, those are all really important to know even before you know the price, right? So important. What about how much would it be to see a client? So when you say to see a client, Hala, I need more explanation on that. How much do I charge to see a client? Is that what you're asking? Okay. I charge 179 Canadian for 75 minutes. And then it's any supplements you need are extra, right? And that's your first appointment. Follow-ups are 169 for an hour. And this course, Abby, no. This course includes all of level 1 and level 2, the IPA levels, right? And with IPA, you need level 1 and level 2 to sit for the certification exam. So this includes all of that. And does that give a report? I do not write reports. I encourage my clients to make notes about whatever is important for them. Right? I found that in the past when I wrote reports, my clients didn't get what they were doing. I do not allow recording of my sessions because I speak very freely in my sessions. And what that means is that I might say some things that I legally shouldn't, that could be used against me, that could land me in jail. So I tend to not allow recording. And can I discuss iridology cameras? Yeah, the one that I love is the one made by Matthew Dahmer. He is located in England. And I love it. Let me just grab mine. Love it because it's quite compact. It doesn't require a fancy stand. What you see here is my office. My office is 63 square feet. I don't have room for a table to put my camera on. Can we see full screen? Yeah, I can stop sharing and you can see my office. Absolutely. Let me just do a stop share. Oh, I hit a wrong button there. Just a moment. Stop share. That's the one I want. There. My office is literally 7 feet wide, 9 feet long. Right? I don't have room for a table with a stand for my camera. And so I like this when it's handheld. This goes right against the client's face, which blocks out all of the extraneous light. So I've got really good control of the lighting. And this one has the settings on it that when I press these buttons in the right order, and I get up to my client's face and I get focused, and then I press the shutter button down all the way and just hold it for about 2 seconds. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and gives me frontal lighting, side lighting, frontal lighting. That's my iris photos. Then I can reset my lighting intensity to do my sclera shots. And then I go to the other eye, reset it for iris, and then reset it for sclera. And photos take me less than 5 minutes. I can pop them up on my computer and it works like a darn. Hala, do you have this camera? What would something like that cost? I don't know. It's been a while since I bought it. And he's using a more updated camera body than what I've got now. Yeah, but I can certainly, Hala, I will grab your email out of my database and I will send you the camera link so that you can check it out. Okay. Pricing, like I said, I really don't remember. I think because I bought my camera locally and I bought my lens locally. And then I bought the illuminator from Matthew. Buying the full package from him, I think runs about 4,000 Canadian, which is about 3,000 US. But I bought my camera locally because I had a son who worked at Best Buy and he could get me a sweetheart deal on the camera and the lens. Right? So that saved me some money. So, but Matthew does sell full packages as well. So I will send you, and Abby wants that as well. Okay. So what I will probably do is, and Richard wants it too. Fantastic. What I will do then, since there's so many requests for the camera, is I will put it in with the replay link. So when you get the replay tomorrow, I want you to look for the camera link in there, and I'll say, hey, many of you asked for the link to the camera that I use. Here you go. All right. And that'll take you right to Matthew's site. And yeah, and there you go. You'll be able to even speak with him, book a 15-minute to talk with him about the camera and work with that. All right. So we've gone all over the place today. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. That was fun. I hope that you were able to pick up something about contraction froze that you can use with your next client. And I look forward to speaking with you in the next few days about the upcoming dynamic iridology course so that we can talk about getting you into it, see if it's the right fit for you and get you into it just under the wire, right? So with that, have a brilliant evening or day or whatever time it is for you. Have it brilliantly, stay healthy, and we will talk to you soon. Bye for now.